Hello everyone and welcome to Merlin Reviews. Today I will be briefly discussing an anime OVA series that I recently watched based upon an influential sci-fi novel, Starship Troopers. I recently found out about this by watching a review of the best-known adaptation, the 1990s film. While that movie is certainly entertaining, using over-the-top violence and media satire to comment on the horrors of war, it was a very different interpretation of the source material. The anime, created in 1988, actually follows the events and tone of the novel much closer than the live-action film. The story follows Johnny Rico, a young man with a certain degree of uncertainty about his life, who joins the Space Marines. The episodes follow his training as he builds camaraderie with his fellow soldiers, deals with the loss of old relationships, and ultimately faces the reality of war. I'm a big fan of science fiction, especially military stuff, and Starship Troopers is one of my favorite novels of this type. Though I do like the live-action film, directed by Paul Verhoeven of RoboCop fame, which I think is very good, I've always preferred the much more serious and darker tone of the novel. The anime is something of a mixed bag. I can't say it's a hidden gem, and I can totally understand why it's fallen into obscurity. One of the bigger issues for me was the animation. Generally, I don't care about the animation quality as much if there are other factors at work to hold it together, like a strong script, voice acting, music, etc. It's not that the animation is bad, it's just very mediocre. It ranges from decent to pretty iffy, especially with background shots of characters. This came out the same year as Akira, so the series leaves much to be desired in that respect. Another major issue comes from the execution of the story. The OVA only has 6 episodes, and the battle with the aliens doesn't happen until the halfway point. That's where the negatives end, though. There are some things I believe are worthwhile here. The story is actually pretty solid and holds together well. Though there is less crazy alien action, they do take time to really establish Johnny's growth as he goes through the process. We see him dealing with his family's reaction to him joining the military, we see him struggling with his training, we see him turning rivals into friends. There is also a subplot regarding his romantic non-relationship with a childhood friend. To be honest, this little will-they, won't-they element is one of the most intriguing aspects of the series for me. I was actually the most invested in it. Several times I was like, come on, really? No, come on. Really though, the best aspect of the OVA is the portrayal of the characters and their interactions with one another. While anime can often be very over-the-top and cartoonish, it's sometimes refreshing when a series actually portrays people very realistically. Johnny and his friends seem like real people. Their conversations as they goof off with each other seem very realistic and probably mirror the behavior of many young cadets. The series isn't as dark or gritty as the novel, though it is much more serious than the film. There's this upbeat 80s soundtrack which isn't bad, but it doesn't really fit many of the scenes. And I'll say this too, when people die, you're utterly surprised by their deaths, and there is some genuine sadness to it. However, many of the deaths are so quick, and the characters just rush past them. This series only really touches upon the horror of war and the philosophical crisis of the soldier on a distant battlefield in the final episode. That's where the best stuff really occurs, and the most action, briefly touching on the darkness, and then ending with a rather hopeful and upbeat note, which I can't say was particularly bad, but it still left it feeling like it was mostly a bit rushed. While the tone is a choice I can live with, the series really either needed to be a few episodes longer to flesh out these themes, or cut down on the training in the first couple episodes a bit. The best thing about this OVA is the honest portrayal of the characters. I loved the little touches the most. For instance, when you're introduced to the hardcore drill sergeant and a strict commanding officer, they seem pretty unlikable at first, but when it's demonstrated that they really do care about their trainees, through little details, it really works. It's not overdramatic or anything, but brief and subtle. The mech suits were modeled after Robotech, and that's pretty cool, and the aliens were pretty awesome as well, these sort of weird cosmic jellyfish type things. They also shot acidic goo at you. They had a truly unique and alien design. However, there just wasn't that much time with them. Overall, the series is brief enough that I could suggest it. If you're a hardcore Starship Troopers fan, you should certainly watch it. Even a passing interest in classic sci-fi would be enough for me to encourage you to give it a shot. Alright everybody, stay magical.